How much useless stuff you don't know. It's interesting because it's nice when you know what you don't know and you start to know what you need. And sometimes you don't need to know everything because not everything is connected to what your life plan is, as long as you have a life plan. Because if you don't, you collapse into what you once wrote, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. 19th century mathematician, a Briton who many people here know called Charles Dodson. Charles Dodson here. Everyone knows him by the name of Lewis Carroll, which is a pseudonym he adopted to write philosophy books under the guise of being childish. Alice in Wonderland is a philosophy book through and through. In fact, it inspired the first Matrix, which is the only one that makes sense. If you remember the Matrix, how does Alice begin? Alice is playing. In the garden comes a white rabbit. She runs after it and falls into a hole, and falls into a world where nothing seems to make sense. That is, ours. And she's lost. The rabbit, I'm late, I'm late. The queen, who tells him to cut off his head every time, cuts off his head. And 1 hour Alice is standing next to the queen at an execution. And she says, but why is she here? How does Alice begin? Alice is playing. In the garden comes a white rabbit. She runs after it and falls into a hole, and falls into a world where nothing seems to make sense. That is, ours. And she's lost. The rabbit, I'm late, I'm late. The queen, who tells him to cut off his head every time, cuts off his head. And 1 hour Alice is standing next to the queen at an execution. And she says, but why is she here? Why are people being executed? She says, I don't know. What did she mean? Because today it's the execution. Tomorrow it's a trial. Then tomorrow it's the crime. She said, that doesn't make sense. She said, it does here. Look at Larry Scarrow, a professor of logic and mathematics who was able to build things, but who alerted us to something that everyone here once read, Larry Scarrow, or watched. The character that you and I have to talk about with our children and grandchildren, my 4 grandchildren, I like to remind them that I'm going to talk to them about this one day, which is the most brilliant character for thinking about life, the boiling generations, is the cat. The cat, that cat who stays up there, whose smile is always there, sometimes just his tail. Do you remember that at one point you're lost in that place? You don't know where you are? With this Keanu Reeves, the character he plays, called Nell, the new one in Latin. Nell is standing in front of a computer, and the Follow the White Rabbit screen starts flashing. At that moment, the doorbell rings. He goes to open it, and there's a group of people, among them a woman with a white rabbit tattoo. And that's when it all starts, and it all leads to a big question. I mean, which life do you want? Do you want that life which is illusory, which is disguised, which is merely a representation? Or do you want a life which is a conscious, deliberate life, in which you're not servile, you're not robotic, you're not someone who has lost her autonomy or freedom? And of course the cat there, 1 hour she's lost, and she sees a cat high up in a tree and says, can you help me? And the cat, with his quiet way, says, of course. She said, where does this road go? The cat made a big, where do you want to go? And she said, I don't know, I'm lost. He said, for those who don't know where they're going, any road will do. For those who don't know where they're going, any path will do. So the big thing to think about is where we want to go, with our options, our choices, in a life that may be short, but doesn't have to be small in any way. And that's when we imagine great scientists. In fact, many people teach the younger generations something very dangerous. They say, as Darwin said, survival is for the fittest. You won't find that in Darwin's work. The origin of species is written. In the fierce struggle for life, survival is for the fittest, which is very different. In the strong struggle for life, survival is of the fittest. Whistle is the one who has flexibility in the field of knowledge, training, in the undergraduate part, a curriculum that is more flexible, that isn't closed in one direction. Let's not forget that in the times we are living in, thankfully, there is no immediate correlation between career and degree. For many of us, career and degree were an obligatory correlation. You're an economist, you do engineering, you're going to be an engineer. Today we have an opening up of possibilities in a world of work that allows someone who does, up of possibilities in the world of work that allows someone who does economics to later become a consultant or open a restaurant or be involved in the media. and I'm from the field of philosophy. You can imagine the number of activities I have. As well as being a teacher and a writer, I'm also a radio and television commentator. I do consultancy work. Eventually, I'm able to, even to give my opinion on things I don't understand, which is a high value. What a good thing. Why am I saying this? Because we absolutely cannot, in a world where things are in turmoil, in great change, admit a dangerous belief that the new generation is ready to be born, and that it in being hit by something that I remembered before as the possible syndrome.